Okay, today we're going to talk about Doctor Who, Ark in Space, and it's a good one, so stay with us. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd. Ark in Space, it's one of my favorite Doctor Who stories. While the space station orbiting Earth at first looks like the model that it really is, it's still pretty well done, I have to say. Even looking closely at it, while you can tell it's a model, it looks pretty good. And the interiors look decently futuristic, even in the present day. The corridors especially were well thought out. The illusion of space inside the space station works, as it seems to be a larger operation than it obviously is. Makeup on the actors also done very well. Those that are in suspended animation makes them look like they have been frozen. It's interesting. In the days of when television was of much lower resolution, that such detail was taken care of on that. There were some other details too that were worth pointing out. I'd also like to point out the floor of the studio. The pattern is done by what is called stage paint. It is something that is used for painting floors and permanent surfaces that need to be cleaned up easily. And the BBC used it quite a bit for painting the floors, painting patterns on the floor so the place would look more alien or more mechanical or more space station-y as they did in this case. This is one of the many times that they've used this technique in order to enhance a set. And it's fairly cheap to do, and it's fairly easy to reverse. So it does add some more realism to the sets, and I thought that was a nice touch. Now, while that was all good, and while the interiors were all good, they kind of cheated on the TARDIS, materialized by filming in the dark, and then they just turned the interior lights on in it, so it looked like it materialized and was there all the time. I guess that was a way of saving some money for it. But nonetheless, I thought it was kind of a clever way of saving some money, and it really didn't take much away from it unless you're kind of looking for it. One of the hallmarks of the Doctor I want to point out here too is that he always has things in his pockets. Not always the right stuff, but always something that's kind of interesting. It may not be a gadget, although he'll have his sonic screwdriver with him. In this case, he had a cricket ball, a telescoping pointer, and a yo-yo to test the gravity. You always need a yo-yo to test your gravity. And of course, his sonic screwdriver's always with him, and his jelly babies. But didn't bring out his jelly babies this time around because he hadn't met anybody yet. But this time, the sonic screwdriver, interestingly, was used as a screwdriver. He did at first use it to repair some circuitry, but another time just to actually unscrew the desk from the floor. I thought it was a pretty good deal there. And it's not the first time they've ever used the screwdriver as a screwdriver. I believe the second Doctor used it to unscrew something when it was first used during his time. Now, I mentioned detail a moment ago, and despite low res on TVs, but it doesn't mean that they didn't cheat a little bit. The slime left by the monster that Harry saw just kind of out of the corner of his eye was actually plastic wrap, green plastic wrap. And while that probably wasn't detectable on the televisions of the time, it's quite obvious here. In fact, even more noticeable later in the episode. But once again, I expect that that was a clever way of not messing up the floor paint, and also it gives an iridescence that you wouldn't otherwise have. Once again, another clever and cost-effective way of doing something. And as we've said all along, if you write the story well, it really doesn't matter how cheesy the effects are. Now, speaking of the story, Sarah, of course, is whisked away on a matter transmitter. That's something they later called a transmat. I like that term. And she's placed in suspended animation, and near the end of the episode, while Harry and the Doctor are looking for her, she turns up, and as they're looking to find some way to resuscitate her, cliffhanger. So, that is the Ark in Space Part 1. Hope you enjoyed that, and hope that you'll join us for the next video about that, which will be coming next week. In the meantime, let me know what you think about it by commenting below, and if you are not subscribed, please do so right now. So, thank you for watching us, and until next time, don't go far.